Hi, everyone. So sorry that this came late and just took a while to prepare. What I want to do in this video, I want to talk about some of the theses that were submitted for the writing plan. We want to talk about making sure that we have a thesis that is as specific as it possibly can be. And that's one of the issues that many of you are coming up with. So let's look at some examples of some of the theses that came in, and let's talk about why they might not be working and talk about how potentially to make them better. So one of the theses that came in, it said, in Lying in a Hammock at William Duffy's farm in Pine Island, Minnesota, James Wright uses metaphorical language to symbolize a deep sense of realization and reflections in his life. And on some level, that is completely accurate. Yes, he is realizing some things, and yes, he is reflecting. The problem is that we don't know in this thesis what he's realizing, what he's reflecting on. We haven't gotten into those details. And a lot of times students like to have these somewhat general theses because we have a tendency to believe that if we keep it really broad, there's some realization and reflection going on, then it's going to be easier to talk about a lot of different things. You got 750 words to fill, and so I don't want to narrow things down. But what happens when we're having a thesis is that it is actually easier and better if we're more specific. It gives us a clearer sense of where we're supposed to be going. So if you explain specifically what it is that he's realizing and what he's reflecting on, it's easier to begin to look at the specific metaphors that he's going to be using throughout the poem, to think about how those metaphors get to those specific kinds of realizations and the specific kinds of reflections. So your thesis should have some specific sense about what's going on there. So if you have these broad things like realization and reflection, we want to make sure to change those. And when I get to marking those, when you get your grades back, which should, not grades, but marking my comments back in the next couple of days, you will see that I'll be making those kind of specific comments, right? For most of you, I'll be saying we're going to have to get much more specific with the thesis here. So that's one example, that realization reflection. It's kind of moving in the right direction. I think on some level true, but we have to define that a bit more specifically. Let's look at the next one. It says, in Of the Threads That Connect the Stars, Martina Spada uses metaphorical language to show us how the experience of three generations and the differences in their perceptions and understandings of the stars, right? Again, this is really broad because we're going to use words like experience, right? The experience of three generations, the difference of their perceptions. And again, on some level, that might be true. We might want to be talking about how we have three generations. We've got in that poem, he's going to be talking about his father. He's going to be talking about his own experiences, and he's going to be talking about his son's experiences. So we do have three generations, and we might have those experiences and the differences in their experiences. But I don't really understand exactly what perceptions we're talking about, what understanding we're talking about, what happens as we are moving through from one generation to the next. How are they understanding their lives differently? What are they experiencing that's going to be different as we move from one generation to the next? Your thesis should be telling us fairly specifically what that is so that we can understand, okay, I got it. I get the big idea here. Now we can understand where we're supposed to be going for the overall essay. Go back and look at the assignment that I gave you for the writing plan, because I give you a sample thesis in there from the Latin Deli. And in that sample thesis, notice that it's much more specific. It doesn't say things, don't say things like, this is how the immigrants feel. I say, let's talk about how they have this very specific feeling of homesickness, about the places that they've left, things like that. So I'm trying to get you to say something very specific about what their emotions are. And so that's what we're going to be having here, that sense of this very specific sense about what are their experiences, what are their perceptions, how do we define what those things are. Still in a single sentence. We're not going to have an entire paragraph where we're going to be doing that, but we're going to have a sentence where we start to explore that, because that will give us the idea about what we're supposed to be doing for the rest of the essay. Let's go to the next one. Here's one that's some that are slightly, I thought I was moving that. Some that are slightly better. Hold on. Slightly better, but still broad. So this one says, in the poem of The Threads That Connect the Stars by Martina Spada, the author uses metaphorical language to show readers that the three different generations of people experience life in different ways, showing us a difference in society during these times. Now, what makes this better is we have this difference in society during these times. So there is something that's going on in the background about how they're experiencing their lives, that the culture is going to be changing in the background, and potentially somehow that's going to change their experiences. However, what's completely missing from this is the sense of what is going on in the society. What are the differences in the society? What kind of changes are going to be happening? We need to know very specifically what that is. Otherwise, we're not going to understand where we're going. So again, this is a little bit better because we are starting to give some sense about there's some difference in society that's somehow changing, making their experiences different. But again, what are those specific experiences? We need to know what that is. Um, the next one, a similar kind of thing. In the poem, this is one for persimmons. In the poem Persimmon, Young Lee uses the fruit persimmon as a metaphor in the speaker's memories, and the speaker's memories, especially those that have left a strong impression on him. So we're talking about memories. Some of the others that we had might have just said, this poem represents memories. We are talking about these memories that have left a strong impression on him. So I think that's a little bit better, that we're saying that these are not just, any memories. No, these are the memories that for whatever reasons have left a strong impression on him. But still, why have these memories left a strong impression on him? What is important about those kinds of memories? What do we really want to say about the nature of those memories? How do we think about how those memories help us understand what's been going on in our lives, right? This is a difficult poem because he's got memories from a lot of different things in his life, about being in sixth grade, about Donna, girlfriend, wife, lover, whoever she is, about his father, about his mother. There's all kinds of different kinds of memories, and we might want to think about how we start to assemble them into one larger idea. And so this is a hard one. And so I think that this person is saying, look, all of these memories have less of a strong impression on him, but we might want to think about either why those have left a strong impression on him, and think about how we're supposed to incorporate those memories into how we think about our lives, right? We all have to deal with memories in our lives, and so we might want to be thinking about how is it that we assemble those memories, think about those memories that get us to make some sense about where we've been and where we're going. What is it that Lee wants us to think about with that? So again, this is getting a little bit better, but and still could be much more specific. Let's look at one that's fairly specific here. I think one that does make a certain amount of sense, and let's see why that's the case. So in Persimmons, Young Lee uses metaphorical language to demonstrate his difficulty with his Chinese background and to assimilate into American culture, which ultimately shapes the speaker's sense of self and belonging. All right, now we are not talking about memories in general. We're not talking about in general about experiences that somebody has had. We are saying very specifically about his Chinese background and trying to assimilate into American culture and how that creates a sense of self. That is very specific. And so, not everybody might want to, the person up above, when they're talking about memories, might want to be talking about some other things. We might want to be talking about family memories or something like that. And that's perfectly fine, right? We can have we can focus on different ideas in the paragraph. I mean, in the poem. So some people might say, look, I want to focus on the importance of family, the importance of family connections and those memories. Great. This person might want to focus on these memories related to Chinese background and assimilating to American culture. There's not one specific way that we can say, no, that's what this poem is about. The poem is about all of these things, and we can just choose one specific thing that we want to discuss. But in this one, this person is focusing on this very specific thing of Lee's Chinese background and his desire to his process of assimilating into American culture, and how that creates a sense of self and belonging. That is very specific. I understand that that's something we want to deal with. Again, you don't have to deal, if you're talking about persimmons, you don't have to deal with that assimilation into American culture. But at least this is going to be specific about that. Or this person's going to focus on that very specific issue. So it's not about memories. It's not about it. This poem is about difficulties that he's faced in his life. Well, we all face difficulties. What difficulties? This person wants to say the difficulty surrounding his Chinese background and assimilating into American culture. That's very, very specific. I can't ask, well, what do you mean by that? Well, he's got a Chinese background. He's trying to assimilate in. That's fairly specific. And then everything in the rest of the essay is going to focus on those ideas. It's going to get us to think about, look, let's look at the metaphors that relate to this idea of his Chinese background and trying to assimilate to American culture. All the metaphors should focus around that. And so the specific thesis gives us a roadmap for exactly what we want to be talking about for the rest of the essay. So keep that in mind. And so as you look at the comments, those comments should be coming through in the next couple of days, as you're looking at the comments on your writing plans, think about what this video, what we've talked about in terms of specific theses. Look at my comments. I'll make some very specific comments about trying to come up with a specific thesis if that's the issue that you have, which again is the issue that most of you have. Think about that. We can talk about that in class some more, but that's where I want us to be going, because that is going to make it a lot easier on some level for you to write an essay. Being more specific is going to be easier than being broad. And again, I know that seems counterintuitive. We feel like be broad and then we'll have a lot of stuff to say. But in actuality, it's much better to be narrow, be very specific, because that tells you exactly what you need to be talking about. We're talking about Chinese background and assimilate to American culture. We know we are only looking for metaphors that relate to that. So keep all that in mind as we move forward.